Welcome back to Cinemaholics. We have another bonus review for you this week as the holidays are coming upon us. We thought it would be great. It's the holidays. We want to talk about movies that make you feel something, right? What about existential dread? That's right. We're talking about Swan Song, but not the one with Udo Kier. This is the film directed by Benjamin Cleary, his directorial debut.
Didn't he won an Oscar, right? For like a short film?
He did, yeah. He's in a bunch of short films. I think back, how long ago was it too? I think it was Stutterer, right? I'm trying to remember what year that was.
I don't actually know. I'll admit I'm not as familiar with this guy's filmography compared to
it was a while ago.
Del Toro.
I think it was. Yeah, I'm trying to remember because I don't remember the year, but I remember the Oscars ceremony. I think it was around the same time as I want to say Spotlight. So really? I guess that would be 2015, maybe. I don't know. I'd have to look into it. But anyway, we're talking about his first feature-length film.
Okay.
This one has Mahershala Ali starring. This is one of the first films really starring Mahershala Ali in a big way. Usually when we have him in these awards heavy films, he's a supporting actor, right? Green Book, he's kind of the co-lead, but Moonlight, he's supporting in that. This one though, for sure, he is the lead. He carries this film, but it also stars Naomie Harris, Awkwafina, Glenn Close, Adam Beach, Lee Shorten, who's been a mutual Twitter follower of mine for a long time. So I always love seeing Lee, his career is just picking up and up. But this is a movie that's going to be coming out on Apple TV Plus. I think actually it might already be on Apple TV Plus. I think as we're recording this, I think it hit limited and Apple TV Plus at the same time, so you can check it out.
Yes,
both ways now. Yeah, but this is a movie that I didn't know anything about this going in, but I kind of got the vibe from it immediately. I was like, oh, okay, this is lo-fi sci-fi, our favorite genre for, I shouldn't say but I'd say it's one of my favorite genres that we don't get a lot of, but when we do, I'm always interested. So we're talking about films like Ex Machina, we're talking about a Black Mirror kind of vibe and feel. But Swan Song, and I said it right that time, not Swan Swong, that's what I want to say. It stars Mahershala Ali as an artist in the near future, and he gets diagnosed with a terminal illness. But there might be a way for him to sort of not leave his family alone in a certain way. Now, I hesitate here to give more away because I watched this movie knowing nothing about it, and it was actually really fun and exciting to experience this movie in that way because I was like, what the heck is going on here for the first 15 minutes of the movie? So I want to leave it here and then we'll explain it in a minute, but I want to say if you want to preserve that experience for yourself, which I recommend, I think that's probably the better way to experience this movie, then you may want to kind of click away, check out the movie. But we will get into a little bit more. Not going to give spoilers for the movie or anything like that, but if that makes sense. Did you know anything about this movie going in, Will, before you saw it?
The only thing I knew about it, besides it starred Mahershala Ali, was that it was the other Swan Song, which I feel like the previous Swan Song isn't that well known because that was a South by Southwest release. It kind of came out as an indie not too long ago this year. Yeah, I mean, I guess technically for other people that would be the other Swan Song, but for me this is the other Swan Song because I saw that one first. But
I think both films should have different titles. That's my opinion.
I think the previous Swan Song with Udo Kier, I think that title fits. This one,
if I had to pick, I would give if one of these gets Swan Song, the other gets a new one. I'd say I agree. Yeah.
What title would you give this movie though?
Anything else? I would even something I don't know. It's such a moody movie. You don't want to give it too sci-fi of a name because then I think that'll be a little bit too you don't want to call it something like Latin, Ex Machina, because it's not that far in terms of the tech. Like Duplicity or something like that. You don't want something too cheeky. There's already a movie called Duplicity. Well, I don't know how many times I have to tell.
Sure. But that was 10 years ago.
I think we joked about this, right? I was like, It Takes Two.
Yes. You know what I mean? Yeah, It Takes Two, which there's a movie with that title as well with the Olsen twins.
You could call it Epitaph. Sure. I don't know, something a little bit more when I hear Swan Song, I think of really heavy character drama, Margot Martindale's in there somewhere. You know what I mean? This isn't that really.
Yeah, I mean, I guess vaguely understand why it's called Swan Song because he's an artist.
What if you didn't have to have a Swan Song?
Sure, I guess, but he's an artist, and it's this is his last work of art in a way or whatever.
But Swan Song, but that's more music, and that's I don't know.
Sure, I mean, it doesn't have to be exclusive to music, but Yeah, I mean, I get what you mean. I
Yeah, well, you know what? Look, Benjamin Cleary, he gets to name whatever he wants. It's his movie. He put the blood, sweat, and tears into it.
sure.
So I don't want to.
It was called Stutterer, and it won in 2016 the Oscar, to call back.
Oh,
what
hey,
you
there
were
we go.
saying before, but yeah, sure.
So we're going to give away kind of what this movie is actually about right now. So this is your last warning. So we got a big old clone movie on our hands. How about that? The idea is that there, in the near future, there's a way for you to, like, even if you pass away, your memories and kind of like everything about you gets transplanted into a clone. Not your consciousness, to be clear. You're not immortal. Like, you're not going to like wake up in another body, but another body is going to wake up as you with the same memories. And there's this whole process of like how that transition happens. And that's what this movie is about. It's about literally Mahershala Ali like facing himself, the version of himself that gets to stay with his family. And we learn over the course of the movie why he's willing to do something like this, why he's pushed to the point where he just feels like he can't, it's too early for him to be gone. His wife and son need him for reasons that the movie gives away, I think, pretty gradually over the course of the film, or at least like in the first or second act. I think this is a very touching movie. It's very, it's very interesting. There are some really great moments. I don't think everything about this quite really lands. There are some very Oscar reel scenes here that I'm like, ooh, you're really pushing it there. And I think there are some performances here that I just didn't quite click with. I'm in agreement with Win Lei, who wrote our review for the young folks, and we agree that I think the weak link in this movie is probably Awkwafina. I think that whenever she was on screen, there was just something kind of distant about that character that I just couldn't click with. But what do you think, Will Ashton? Did you like Swan Song? Are you singing its tune?
I didn't take issue with Awkwafina's performance. I think I'm in that camp where I prefer her dramatic performances more than her comedic ones at this point.
I do too. I think Farewell is her best performance for a reason.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I get what you're saying though, because this one, it's kind of trying to split the difference a little bit. Like, it's like kind of like dryly and darkly comedic, but not really. But it kind of is.
Yeah, like for me, the illusion of the movie breaks whenever she's on screen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're maybe a little bit more precious to the illusion of the film than I am. To answer,
did you not really buy it? Like,
it's not that I didn't.
We're not able to.
It's not that I didn't buy it, but to me, like, I think I admire the ideas. Like, I really like the fact that we have a original high concept sci-fi movie that's grounded in characters, and it's like it's futuristic but not overly so, which tend to be my favorite type of sci-fi movies that are more about like the cerebral as opposed to the high tech and stuff like that. But there's something about this movie, and I can't exactly put my finger on it, but it feels like a little too clean and a little too neat in a way that feels like I'm watching like an iPad commercial for 90 minutes. Not that it's like trying to sell an iPad, but it feels like it's a movie that's being made like an iPad commercial where everything's...
Are you mentioning that because of the Apple connection?
Well, that's fitting, I guess, but I don't know, I just felt like the production of it had this sort of sleekness that worked against the film. And I can't figure out why, because it's not like it's a detriment to the film, but for some reason that prevented me from fully getting invested in it in a way that I felt was ultimately to the film's detriment than to its benefit.
I think I disagree, because I think I think it's a really interesting portrait of how technology is going to evolve, in the near future. This idea that and I think that it serves the themes of the movie in that way. I think if this movie was too close to the present and we didn't really have like this, like, for example, a self-driving car the way we do, or like it's like these little bits of tech that are a little bit like they're familiar, but they're certainly like they're certainly of a piece with like what the future could look like without feeling like false, without feeling like, oh, that's what somebody in like 2021 thinks the future. It's more of like, oh, I could actually see that, it's a little bit more out of the box in some respects. I think that serves the themes of the movie, because you do have to buy something like this happening, but it just seems, the rules of it seem so surreal. It's like, how could you possibly take the essence, the memories of a human being and effectively clone it in this way and have them interact? Like, it's such a futuristic thing, but I think those pieces help us be like, it's not that far from the future. So I do think that the film can like manage that, if that makes sense.
Sure. But also I think this is a type of film, maybe it's because it's the director's first film. I think a lot about the movies it's trying to mimic more than I think about what Cleary is doing as a filmmaker. So the
Interesting,
concept
because I didn't.
okay.
I did a little bit. Like, I was thinking like, okay, Black Mirror, okay, but
Okay,
I think over time this movie kind of came into its own for me.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, for me, I couldn't stop thinking about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Like, it's not it's not like a memory white movie, but it has like a similar vibe and feel, especially given how much of a romance it is. And I also thought a lot because of the forest setting and like this kind of isolated character thing that there was a lot of ex machina in here for sure. And yeah, I mean, without giving away, there are a couple towards the end I was thinking of as well, but yeah, I just think like it's a type of film where I'm curious to see where Cleary is going to go next as a filmmaker. I think he does a competent job, and I really think it's as best as a showcase for Mahershala Ali because he's giving, 2 performances for the price of 1, which you can complain about that. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's just not quite as distinct enough for me to value it as much as those 2 films that I mentioned. It feels like it's so emblematic of the other films that doesn't feel wholly a piece with itself. But it seems like you disagree with that.
I do, because I think that what you're referring to there, like certainly the touches of it have those inspirations, but I don't think that they're the core focus. Like, I think that the whole idea of like the memory and the sappiness, I think where it stands out is in its central question and how it executes its delivery of that question. The question here is like, what if, like, would you make the ultimate sacrifice to shield your family from trauma? If you could make it so that your family doesn't have to grieve you, would you do it? And it's a philosophical question that I think the film effectively grapples with, and it does it in a way that I think is unique to this movie. I think that undercurrent is original. I think that's where Cleary clearly had like the most fun and the most thoughtful, writing from his script that he paid. Like, if you think he paid the most attention to that aspect of the script, which for me is always something that I prioritize, because you can have a movie that, yeah, sure, maybe it imitates some things a little bit too slavishly, and we can all sort of have a laugh about that. But I think when it comes down to what this movie is actually saying and the originality, like you mentioned, like the fact that we have something this cerebral and adult with this kind of budget, it's I think a wonderful thing, because you can't really get that from 4-quadrant movies, right? You can't get this from like a Marvel movie, like that's really gonna, like what happened when WandaVision tried to do a thing about grief. It just sort of like I know you didn't see it, but it just resolved into like a big old battle. It didn't really like tackle the emotion and like the pain of these sorts of questions, and it's hard to do that, right? When it's not WandaVision's fault. It's just the matter of fact of like, when you make something that is supposed to be experienced by everybody, you kind of have that committee feel. Whereas this, I think it has its focus, it has its audience in mind, and I think that it really kind of pulls it off for the most part. Like, I really don't have a ton of complaints about it, especially because we have a Mahershala Ali performance that is as brilliant as ever. I have no complaints about how he does in the film. My only complaints with the cast is that I think Glenn Close and Naomie Harris, as good as they are, just aren't in it enough for me. I don't think they get enough time in this movie to really kind of, I don't know, showcase their talent. But all in all, it works for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with Glenn Close. She's, she doesn't get enough to do here, and I think she deserves better. But I thought Naomie Harris was actually quite good. I mean, obviously, I would prefer if she was in it more, because I think she's giving a really standout performance. But I didn't take any fault with what she was doing here. But yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying, because obviously I'm thankful that we have a movie like this, even if it's going to be primarily seen on streaming. Kind of similar to Finch, the other Apple TV movie that we talked about a couple months back. But yeah, I guess for me, like I said before, it kind of feels like it's Kaufman light, Charlie Kaufman light, in that, like, I think it's tackling some very interesting, thoughtful things. I think the execution of it's pretty thoughtful, but I think the direction that it goes isn't that deep or profound. And I felt like maybe if it had maybe more of a sense of humor, or maybe something that made it a little bit more distinct or a little bit more humane, it would have hit a little bit harder for me. There's just something about, like I said, that I think it's good, it's competent, I enjoyed it. I'm thankful that we have a movie like this, but I just feel like it's maybe 1 or 2 notches away from being like a good to great film.
Yeah, I can't say that I'm at the point where I would be like, this is a great film, but I do think it's a good one. And I do think that, like, anybody who checks it out, I haven't checked out the trailer yet, but I imagine it's like one of those movies that like kind of is really like the trailer probably pinpoints, you know, the audience for this. Like, if you check it out, I think you get what you expect from this for the most part. And it's not that I don't think Naomie Harris is good in the movie. I just what I'm saying is, like, there's just not enough. I think that they were missing some moments that really, like, fully, like, bring full dimension to her character. There are times that it felt like the writing for her was a bit, she's not one note, but I don't know, there was some missing stuff there for me.
I mean, considering that she has like a, you know, sparkling opening scene in the film, it feels like the second half of the film is just kind of like concerned wife or concerned mother, I guess, as well. It just kind of feels like the character grieving. Well, I mean, soon to be grieving, I guess, or actually not grieving at all. Maybe she hopefully will never know.
She's already grieving somebody. Yeah. From, you know, her brother, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I thought you meant like grieving Mahershala Ali, when I guess hopefully she would never really know. But yeah. I guess for me, kind of similar to what you said, like if I was talking to somebody and they're like, oh, we don't get like, you know, like stripped down, just like intellectual movies anymore. You know, it's like all these kind of like bombastic studio blockbusters and stuff. I would recommend this film. I think it's pretty easy to recommend in that respect. I just kind of wish it was a little bit more memorable to warrant being more effusive in my praise. I think it's a solid film. I think it works because of Mahershala Ali, but I also at the same time have not been really thinking about it much. It's type of film like, until you bring it up, like, hey, we're going to review Swan Song, I'm like, oh yeah, like Swan Song, that's a movie I saw a couple weeks ago. It's not a film that's been wrestling in my mind, but it sounds like it was a little bit more of a rich experience for you, which I appreciate.
Yeah, just not that rich. I think I'm always a sucker for sci-fi films that are character focused, and I don't think we get enough of them. I think sometimes people just assume that, you know, that's not really what sci-fi is for. Like there's like the whole school of sci-fi where it's like, it's all about the spectacle. It's like, okay, Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever. But no, I mean, I think that sci-fi, like, really when put to the test, is about people. And it's about how people react and respond to just the unpredictability and evolution of technology. Like, there's this feeling of being like overwhelmed by possibility, you know, whereas like in your lifetime, can you imagine something like this existing? And I love when a movie just has that thought experiment. Like, let's just put characters who are so stunning and so, you know, memorable, and put them in this like just environment where it's not wish fulfillment necessarily, but it is sort of like, what if, you know, and just it's very elegantly written in that regard. Despite, I can definitely see where some people might fall a little bit short of this one emotionally, and really just, you know, clicking with, you know, the whole where this movie goes of it all, and some of the characters for sure. But yeah, it's a harmless film in a lot of ways. I think you get out of it more than anything it might possibly detract.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted something a little bit more, but I'm thankful we have it. There are a couple other things I think we didn't mention yet that I would like to praise, like the score. I think it was Jade Wadley. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name correctly, but it's like a, you know, kind of like a nice, moody, mournful, sort of like string piano score that's, you know, not like the most original for a film like this, but I think it's pretty effective as far as like getting you emotionally involved.
I was surprised because cinematography is by Masanobu Takayagi, and I was not expecting that. This is not a movie even close, similar to some of his more high-profile films like Hostels, and I guess Hostels isn't that.
I was gonna say, I get you mean.
But he did like Silver Linings Playbook, right? In The Gray and Warrior.
I think so, yeah, if I remember correctly, yeah. And I while I don't like love the look of it, I think it's very well made and well shot cinematography, and I think it looks nice. I also really like the, as you mentioned, sort of like stripped down production look of it, where it's like, it's obviously futuristic, but it's not like showy. It feels a lot more believable and grounded in a way. Like you could believe that world like this would exist 20 or 40 years from now. That stuff, like, you know, that stuff really works for me. I think it's a good way to get you invested in it, in addition to the performances. And I think Cleary has an interesting career ahead of him if he can continue making movies like this. But yeah, I mean, it's, you know, not a movie I loved per se. I feel like it's missing maybe one or two things to make it a little bit more dynamic or unique, but it's certainly one that is easy to celebrate all the same. Sure.
Yeah, you can definitely. There were some moments in here where I was like, yeah, I know where this was shot, Vancouver. Also, I looked it up, and Takanagi also did the cinematography for Spotlight. So look at that. Huh. We accidentally. So I guess it sounds to me for you, Will, that this movie, you were Glenn close to liking it more Right, but
I
there were
like the
just
film.
some things that were a bit too Aquafina for you.
Yeah, I mean, I like the film. Like,
I'll leave it at that.
sure, I get what you're doing. I like the film. I think it's like, if we're not doing ratings anymore, but like, if for me, it's like a pretty easy like 3 out of 5 star film. Like, I liked it.
Cleary, you would give this a 3 out of 5.
Yeah, yeah. It's an easy recommend. It's like a fine rental. If you can see in theaters, I don't think it's a bad way to see it. But given like how they're like a bombardment of movies in theaters right now, and also considering how dangerous it is for some folks to see movies in theaters right now, I don't begrudge anyone for watching this on Apple TV Plus, and I think it's pretty accessible on there as well. But it's a type of film that I'm hoping it's more like, all right, this is a pretty good debut, but the next film is going to be like outstanding. Like, that's my hope.
Sure.
For Benjamin Cleary, I think he has the talent and potential. I just don't think this first film quite reaches the heights of that said potential.
Sure, and I just looked it up to see like how many theaters is this even playing in the Bay Area, right? A pretty big market, and 2 theaters in the entire Bay Area that I'm seeing right now. So yeah, to your point, I don't think that this is definitely a walk, don't sprint kind of theatrical experience. I would argue too.
Yeah,
especially if you already have Disney Plus or Apple TV Plus.
I haven't looked it up, but I don't think it's playing in theaters near me, which makes me even more surprised. I had the an advanced screening for it. And I also was the only critic in the theater. It was really weird. Like, I don't think I've ever gone to advanced screening and been the only critic. It made me feel very very official.
That happened to me. That happened to me recently. I don't remember what movie it was though. It was around this time. I think I saw something and there was nobody else there. So it's very strange.
Yeah, I mean, there was like, the rep was there and like the security people were there, but as far as like the critics, it was just me. It was a bizarre experience in that respect. But I mean, I'm glad that I got to see in theaters. I feel like I might be one of like literally 5 Pittsburgh people that got to see in theaters. But I'm thankful for that opportunity all the same.
All right, sounds good. All right, let's play the Rotten Tomatoes game. Will Ashton on Rotten Tomatoes, 65 critics have logged Swan Song. I'm not one of them. I didn't do a review for Swan Song, but you could still make a guess, right? And
Sure.
Just for warning, there is no audience score for this. There's no cinema score. So we're just gonna do the critic score. How sad is that? I guess you're right. It doesn't really matter.
I mean, there'll probably be an audience score later.
Yeah, it's just not. I don't think enough people have seen it. It has 50 plus ratings on audience score, but nothing has been pushed out.
Right. I remember. I think I quickly glanced at the Rotten Tomatoes score when I saw the film, but as we mentioned before, that was a couple weeks ago. So it may have fluctuated. So I think at the time it was like a 92%, but my gut says it's probably like an 85% right now.
Really? That's surprising. It's at 77%.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I saw the score a couple weeks ago. I never saw this at 90. I saw it at 64%.
Really? Wow.
A while ago. Yeah, it's gone up. I saw it and I was just like, this was after I saw the movie and I was like, wow, people are really mixed on this movie, surprisingly. And I found that kind of strange because I really enjoyed it. I thought it was quite good and I was, a little confused. But
maybe
77%.
Maybe I'm just thinking of something else, or maybe the other Swan Song has 90%.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I thought I saw 90 something for it, but I don't know. Maybe I was mistaken. But I was not quite on the mark with that one either. What was it, 77%?
77%. And that, that's fine. Who cares? You get them right so often. We got to keep it interesting,
There is something fitting about the, 2 numbers being exactly the same, 7-7, duality, all that, etc.
Nice. Yeah. Yes. But it's also like not the number for a man, like human, like 6'6". It's 7'7". So it's stretching above.
Yeah, we're really stretching that, but I mean, I like it. I like it.
Hopefully we have other reviews we want to get to. I'm not sure we'll get to these before the holiday, probably not, but for our next episode, we want to talk, of course, about The Matrix Resurrections. That's the next big movie coming out, but also The King's Man, Sing 2, Licorice Pizza. I finally saw The Lost Daughter, which is coming to Netflix soon, is in limited release. I don't think I'll be getting to A Journal for Jordan, but Will, I know you want to check out The Tragedy of Macbeth very soon. Of
course, yes.
Parallel Mothers is coming out.
Yes.
I mean, it's a spoil of riches if you're a fan of movies these days.
Yeah, and who could forget American Underdog and The Tender Bar?
Yes, I'm seeing a Tender Bar today, hopefully, and I'm hoping that it is better than I'm expecting because I have barely heard anything about this movie and that concerns me, but
I have heard that Ben Affleck is very good in the film.
I heard he's in it. I've heard nothing else. But yeah, hopefully we're gonna have a great conversation about all of these films, maybe more, maybe less, in the coming future. But with that, I guess we could just say goodbye. See you, Washington.
Sure. See you, John.
Thank you so much for listening to our show. Be sure to subscribe to Cinemaholics on your favorite podcast app of choice or find us on YouTube. See you all next time.